Okay, so I think we can start the presentation. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today's meeting, which is going to be all about college essay tips. Okay, so first, let's start with the agenda. Okay, so first we're going to start off with some general essay tips and then some strategies that you can use, and then we'll move on to just some general UC essay information. After that, we're going to talk about some different UC essay prompts and exactly how you can answer them, and then we'll quickly discuss a few common application essay prompts as well. Finally, we'll discuss our resources that we used for all of the information on our slides, and then end off with Q&A. So if you have any questions, make sure you stick around for that. Okay. Okay, so let's start with the general UC essay information. So basically, college essays are a way that the admissions officer can get to know you and develop a deeper understanding about your character and your story in a way that your GPA and extracurriculars won't exactly show. So you want to make sure that you're writing about a topic that's really important to you, and you want to make sure that you talk about its significance and discuss exactly how it affected you and really reflect on it instead of just retelling a story, which might come off as boring. It's important to start early when you're writing your essays. This will ensure that you have enough time to make multiple drafts of each and redo anything if also make sure that you have at least one person, like a family member or a friend, to proofread your essay so that they can catch any grammar errors that you might make and really help improve your essay in general. They'll provide an outside perspective on your essays so they can help you with things that you might not be able to see. So start off with a clear thesis when you're writing your essay and use that as kind of like a roadmap for the rest of your essay. And this will make sure that you can stay focused on the one topic that you want to discuss and not go on multiple different tangents, which might confuse or bore the admissions officer, which we definitely don't want. Remember to start off with a good hook and really grab the admissions officer's attention. The hook is the first thing they're going to read, so you want to make sure that it stands out and holds their interest when they read the rest of your essay. And finally, remember to keep all of your essays under 350 words because that's the word limit for all of the essays for UCs. Now, Jasamarbir is going to be explaining some UC essay prompts and give you some important pointers when you're writing your own essays.
So the so the first UC essay prompt is to describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others or helped resolve, disputed, or contributed to group efforts over time. So this prompt is basically if you've shown any sort of leadership in high school. For example, if you were the class president or vice president. So, or it could also be if you were the captain of the basketball team, etc. And there are other ways to show leaderships, such as you taking on a huge responsibility for your families. Maybe you work another job to help support them. If you've ever been called a leader, you should write it in this prompt. So the structure for this essay is to write a short analytical painting of the picture experience you want to highlight, how you felt during the experience, reflecting on what made that experience stand out, what you learned from that experience, and how you apply it to future endeavors. The second UC prompt is for anyone who has a creative side and they can express it in many ways. So this prompt is basically if you think you're creative. For example, if you play a musical instrument, you love dancing, anything that brings out your creative side. The UCs are interested in more than just your academics. They want to see you as a whole. The structure for this should be to describe the problem that arose, what was your thought process for solving this issue, what setbacks you faced and how you overcame them, and reflecting on how your solution to the problem was creative and different from how others would have approached it, how you can apply this similar style of thinking to future endeavors as well. The third UC essay prompt is what your greatest skill or talent would be, and how you've developed and demonstrated that talent over time. This is basically anything basically that you think is special about you, something that is unique about you, or some talent that you think is good. So basically, you want to make sure when you're choosing your ability to not choose an abstract quality that's already clear from your application. UCs don't want to see something that's already on your application. They want you to use these as a way to show something new. So make sure you also connect your quality, whatever it is, to the specific things you've done. And if you pick a sport for this prompt, it can lead to a PIQ question, which is bland and basic most of the time. So the structure for this is what were the beginnings of the talent? What were some setbacks and obstacles you faced while developing this talent? How did you overcome those challenges? And are there shining moments of success with this talent? And what did you learn from this journey and how you applied it to other challenges?
So now we'll go over UC prompt number 4. All right, so UC prompt number 4 says, describe how you've taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you've faced. If you can describe this in the additional comment section, that it's better not to this prompt because you don't want to end up repeating the same thing. Now, for the educational opportunity, if you choose to write the educational opportunity part of this prompt, you shouldn't be too boring. You should start out with a very descriptive anecdote, connect this educational experience to how you are as a person, and then end with how you can apply what you've learned to the future. Education for the educational barrier part, you can describe the problem emotionally descriptively. So you basically describe how it affected you emotionally and include a lot of emotions in your text to make it more, interesting to the reader. Then you explain your thought process as you began to deal with the issue. Then you describe how you ended up figuring it out. And lastly, you reflect on what you learned in the process and how you'll apply it to the future. UCs want to know what you took away from each of these experiences. So that's very important too. All right, so let's talk about the UC essay prompt number 5. This prompt says, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you've taken to overcome it. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Now, generally, some of the stronger topics that you can write about on this prompt are racism, sexism, crime, violence, unemployment, and physical disability, and how a difficult family situation led you to take on more responsibilities. Some weaker topics are breaking up a romantic relationship, not making it into a team or club, taking a difficult class, being shy and then finding your voice, and getting a bad grade. You can put this on the 550 character academic history section of the application. Now the being, can you move back please really quickly? Yeah, so the being shy but then finding your voice prompt is bad because it's just really been overused. A lot of students write about this, so it's kind of hard to stand out if you use this topic. All right, so let's continue with the sample structure. Now, first, you can start with the challenges you faced and the effects that it had on you, which would be 1/3 of your PIQ or personal insight question. The second thing you're going to do is write about what you did about it, which is again going to be 1/3 of your PIQ. And lastly, you'll talk about what you learned, which is again 1/3 of your PIQ. And hopefully you can talk about how you'll apply that in the future. Now, make sure to address how the challenge impacted your academics because it says, how has this challenge affected your academic achievement? So you don't want to leave that out. If the topic is about moving to a new school or nation, then you may not want to write an essay on that, as thousands of high school students have the same experiences. It's just far too common to make you stand out. All right, let's talk about the UC essay prompt number 6. Now this one says that think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you furthered this interest inside and or outside of the classroom. Now this is a solid way to demonstrate your intellectual side because usually in the other PIQs, you talk about other aspects of you as a person, and usually your GPA and everything demonstrate your intellectual side. But this is one way to add greater depth to that. Now, engineering and computer science majors should definitely consider this one, as these majors are impacted, meaning that colleges face a lot of applicants to these majors. And if you write about how you are interested in that major, it will help your chances. Now, some tips for this prompt are providing specific examples. You should also choose a subject that you have outside classroom experience with, such as internship, tutoring, or clubs. And you should end with how you plan on pursuing the subject in the future. Now, an example structure is starting off with an anecdote of a specific instance of you loving the subject, learning a particular topic, or making some intellectual realization. Next, you would explain the reason behind why the anecdote is important to your love of the subject. Then maybe you'd write about another anecdote that shows the progression of your relationship with the subject in the classroom. If you have an out of the classroom experience, write another anecdote and explain how it furthers your interests. And then finally, reflect on how this entire academic journey shaped you as a person and how you plan on furthering it in the future. All right, so let's move on to the UCSA prompt number 7. Now this one says, what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? Now, UCs love to know whether and how you've made an impact on your community. This is one thing they're really big on. If you don't choose this prompt, it's a good idea to demonstrate impact on your school or community in 2 of the other prompts. In this prompt, you should explain how your impact on your community affected you in return. That's also pretty important. An example structure for this prompt is first describing your community and how it was like before you stepped into it, and then you should explain your thought process in determining the necessary impact that you wanted to make, and then detail the steps that you took to implement the specific impact you made, and then reflect on how the experience affected or changed you. And then lastly, think about how you might bring the lessons you learned from this experience to college or the future. All right, now let's move on to the last UCSA prompt. Beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? This is kind of like the Common Apps topic of your choice prompt that we'll go over later. You should generally pick one specific example that demonstrates a vital part of who you are. Make sure that you're revealing something about yourself that wasn't already revealed in a different prompt you choose to write, because you should try to expose as much of yourself as you can. You don't want to end up repeating stuff. Now, a sample structure for this is first you share an anecdote of you doing whatever it is that makes you stand out. Then you explain how you came to develop this characteristic or passion. Then you move on to talking about what you learned throughout your journey to discovering these characteristics. Then you should talk about why this trait matters to you, others, or the world. And lastly, you should talk about how does this aspect of you make you a valuable person on the UC campus. In other words, how will you contribute to the UC diversity with this aspect? All right, so one thing that we've gone over a lot in these UC PIQs is that a lot of them are narratives. You start out with an anecdote to capture the reader's attention, and then you just narrate the rest of your experiences. That's generally how most people write their essays. All right, now let's move on to the Common App prompts.
All right, so welcome to the Common Application essay prompts. So I'll go ahead and get started for the Common Application essay prompts. But before we get into that, I'll give you some brief insight on what the Common Application is and what it requires. So first and foremost, here's a quote from Common Application themselves. The Common Application is a single online application form used by over 900 colleges and universities. Instead of filling out the same general information like your address, GPA, and extracurriculars a dozen times, you only have to do it once. So what this means is that your Common Application essays that you will type out, you can submit them to these many colleges by just doing it once. You don't have to continuously retype them essays again and again and again. However, this is different from supplementals, which I'll get to towards the end of the session. So here's some brief general information about the Common Application. So generally, the due date for the Common Application for early decision is November 1st, and for the regular decision is January 1st. And this depends upon the specific schools, so you should be sure to check out the school's websites for the exact dates. And what is the advantage of the Common Application? Well, the primary advantage is submitting one standard form, which saves time for you in terms of writing these essays and reformatting them. And you can focus more of your time on other essays which require more editing, especially when it comes to like privates and IVs. And the cost for these Common Applications are $30 to $75 for US applicants. And it varies for international students. So certain things that are included in the application itself when it's submitted to the colleges, well, it can have specific questions to specific colleges. So that's what you have to retype for a different college. And the prompts are pretty general. So for example, here's one that says, reflect on a time when you question, challenge a belief or idea. And in this case, this prompt is the current prompt for the 2020 to 2023 year. So I'll go ahead and get started with these example prompts for the 2022 to 2023 schooling year. So there are 7 prompts. The first prompt for the Common Application is, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is meaningful they believe their application will be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So in this case, you can write about if you have a certain unique hobby that you can't like live without, or if you have a unique personal story that shows the type of person you are. Um, so you can mention those in this particular prompt. And for this prompt, the structure would be, first of all, starting with a short anecdote, painting the picture. So what you want to highlight, and you're setting the scene again. And then you can talk about how you felt during this experience. And then following that, you can reflect back on what this experience created you and what it means to you. Um, and moving forward to the second prompt, this prompt says the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamentals to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from this experience? So basically, what this prompt is trying to get at is um, what was a challenge that you faced, and then you later found success in that challenge, and then how did it affect you, and how did you learn from the experience? So for this prompt, you can talk about a time where maybe you had a failure, and that failure led to a big change in your life, and then you had to learn and recover from that failure. However, there shouldn't be like some common thing like failing a math test, for example. That's not very outstanding. Neither is that very like good on an application like this, right? You want something very unique. And so you want something that has a big change in your life, and it's relevant to you only, not to majority of the audience. As for the structure for this particular prompt, you can start off with a little background about what was the issue, what was the obstacle that you faced, and talk about what exactly went through your life at that time period, and then discuss how it affected the person you are and what you learned from the setback. So moving on to prompt number 3, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking, and what was the outcome? So for this particular prompt, you can go ahead and think about something that was an incident in your life, and which this incident made you question your belief or idea as to what you were uncertain about. And then, of course, the structure for this is you can set the stage for what the belief or idea was, and then you can talk about why you came to that like discussion as to why you were questioning this belief or idea. And then you can follow that up with actions that you took to come to conclusion as to what this belief or idea was, and then of course come up with the results or outcomes of that questioning and curiosity. And then moving forward, I think Sorno can take it from here, from the common application prompt number 4.
Okay, so prompt number 4 basically says to reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. And how has this gratitude affected or motivated you? So, in this essay, you want to recall a time when somebody helped you out in a way that had a really big impact on your life and your character right now. So, you want to look back to an incident where somebody helped you out and made your thoughts about them alter completely and like change your idea about them. And so for the structure of this essay, first you want to obviously like set the stage and give some background information on what happened, which made you really thankful for them, so that the admissions officer can understand what exactly the experience was when you elaborate it about it later on in the essay. And you want to talk about how you responded to whatever they did for you for the rest of the essay. Okay, so now we can move on to the prompt number 5. So this prompt says to discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So here you want to recall a time that sparked an important change in you and your character and your personality, and you want to think back to the incident that led you to change and helped you become the way that you are right now and motivated you to become a new and better version of yourself. So, like all the other essays, you want to first start off by setting the stage for what happened and providing some background information on the event that affected you, and then talk about how it affected you and what impact it had on you and how it changed you as a person, and then also discuss how it motivated you to become better. Now we can move on to common application prompt number 6. Okay, so here it says to describe a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So here you want to think about an activity that makes you like 100% indulge in that activity and just makes you forget about everything that's going on around you because you're so focused and interested in that one thing. So usually people talk about a hobby or like maybe an instrument that you really enjoy in this essay. So you could think about something like that. So you want to start off by describing what the activity is and why you are drawn towards this activity and kind of elaborate on exactly what it is and what makes it appealing to you. And then you want to talk about who or what you would turn towards when you want to talk more about this activity, kind of like a mentor figure or maybe just a friend that also partakes in this activity with you. You also want to talk about who you go to when you have like questions or anything like that about the activity. Okay, finally, we're going to cover common application prompt number 7. Okay. So this one is a really open-ended question. So it says to share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one that you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. So here you want to look back at an essay that makes you significantly like proud of it or really resembles your character and your personality. So since this is a really open-ended question, there is no like specific structure for it. Um, Also try not to use like UC essays for this. Like even though it says that you can choose one that responds to a different prompt, try not to like copy paste it into this one because that will definitely show them that you're lazy and you didn't really put any effort. So anyways,
These are some of the links, like Arne mentioned, that we use for the slideshow itself, but also there's a lot more information on these links themselves. So if you want to check them out once we share the slideshow in the main group chat and on our YouTube channel as well, you can go ahead and look at these links. They're really useful, especially when it comes to learning more information about these particular topics. And with that, we can go ahead and transition to Q&A.